Hi mate, how are you?
Not bad, Luke. Not bad. Yourself?
I'm very well at the moment, actually, yeah. I'm not too bad. I see you're in a different location today.
I am. I have moved home. I'm back in
Ooh.
the great old county of Northamptonshire now.
Wow. What's it like? How long have you been there?
It's a bit weird.
Yeah.
I got back Sunday, so like 48 hours I've been back.
Yeah.
I've already been put to work, back in the gardens.
Back in the gardens, yeah, doing the gardening.
And yeah, home cooked meals, that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's nice. It's cool. I'm going to go through all my old stuff and rubbish from like years and years, just hoarding. I'm just going to bin and sort and clear. So that's going to be therapeutic in a bit. But other than that, I'm just doing the same thing that I was before anyway.
Yeah. I went home last week. I had to have my eyes tested. Very, very strange experience it was. And then I went to the dentist. So I went to the opticians, and she was like, very good that you came, very good. So I said, oh, really? She's like, yeah. She was like, basically, your stigmatism has changed quite a lot, and how you shouldn't be wearing them all the time with these ones, which, on right now. I shouldn't be wearing them all the time, but apparently I'm going to have to because I now can't see things further than basically this, so... I mean, I can see the camera that's recording me right now that I'm pointing to, and it'll be on the final edit, but anything past that, I can't really read what it says. I won't be able to tell you how many minutes it's been recording for, or...
That's not ideal.
No, although what wasn't also ideal was when I went to the dentist the next day, and I'm not joking when I say this, I was literally in there for 4 minutes, and with the dentist probably 2. I went in, got the temperature taken and all that, and they were like... You're a little bit too hot. And I was like, pardon? She was like, you're 37.5. And I was like, somehow I thought that was a good temperature. But she was like, I know, bear in mind it was like 30 degrees outside. She was like, but it is warm outside, so we'll let you off. Anyway, in I went, got the phone, Apple paid, £23 of my money. Come through, so I went through and whatever. Had a bit of a chat, the awkward chat that you have when you go home back. So what are you doing now? Where's your life going? What's going to happen in your career? And you're going, you tell me at this moment in time. No idea. Anyway, take the mask off. Looks in my mouth. All the thing they do. And they go A, B and all that stuff. That you don't know what they're saying, but they all know exactly what they're talking about. So anyway, in I go. She's like, Luke, your teeth are fine. Good. And then she was like, right, you do have a little bit of staining on your teeth, but I can't do that today because we can't use any air. So I was like, right. And then she said, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make you another appointment for 6 months' time, and then we'll have them done then. So I was like, you're going to be charging me the same amount for that? And she was like, yeah. Come and have them done then, and everything should be okay. And then I'll see you in 9 months' time. But hang on, there's people sat, still waiting for have fillings and, urgent dental appointments. And there I went, being told my teeth are absolutely fine, and was in there 2 minutes and got charged £23 for the purpose of it. I was absolutely mortified.
What a joy.
I know. 23 quid it was. I know. I mean, I have to say that the optician needs to start putting their prices up because that was £35 and my eye test was nearly an hour. So in terms of pounds per minute, she really needs to sort herself out.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect price, if not too high. Let's lower it way down.
I know. £23.
So we're back again to talk about theatre.
Yes.
So
we'll do that. We'll actually we'll introduce the podcast and not have a chat about the state of my teeth or eyes, which, as we found out, one aren't good and one's perfect. So we'll introduce the podcast after our introductory section. Hello and welcome back to episode 4 of the Talking Theatre podcast with me, Luke.
And me, Tom.
Hopefully you are all well and have managed to kind of get back into some sense of normality over these past few weeks now that lockdown has kind of eased, and hopefully you are enjoying these podcasts that we are doing. If you're new around here, remember to drop a subscribe on our channel down below, like the video, and stay tuned to the end of this podcast, or in fact go back to all the starts and then you can kind of understand what we've been talking about in our first few episodes. As I say, we are the Talking Theatre podcast and we aim to do just that, and that is talk all things theatre. So this week we are going to be talking about the at-home theatres, so the kind of pre-recorded theatre, and then a bit of a chat of online theatre, which is becoming a new thing in this Zoom environment. We're Zooming today, and people are Zooming, so lots of different things. We're going to have a bit of a chat about that.
What's interesting is we said in the first episode, I think it was, that the two of us used to have quite heated debates in seminars and things when we were at uni, and we haven't quite done that yet.
There could be one on the way today.
Episode may be one that allows for that. So
could get heated.
What we're going to be talking about properly. Give us some examples, and let's start with your opinion on streaming theatre.
So, to supply a little bit of context before I get into my maybe quite opinionated view of this. So, for anyone that isn't aware, over the past 3 months we've kind of been in lockdown now. A lot of the big theatres in and around the country and across the pond as well have been doing these at-home things. So basically, they might, I don't know if you know about, that's the audience at home and the people that are listening to us, the National Theatre do like their at-home series, which used to be their National Theatre Lives. So they might have a popular production that might have had a sold-out run, and they'll go and film the production 2 weeks before releasing it to the cinemas, and you'll go along to the cinema and pay, I don't know, £12 for your entry and sit there in the cinema and watch it. Something that we did actually in first year when we went to see Coriolanus. I personally didn't.
It hardly.
Yeah, I was about to say I personally didn't fall asleep that day, but I know a lot of people did. But there we go.
No comment.
That's probably best. So anyway, a lot of these theatres have been doing this. So I'm just going to start by talking about the National Theatre. Now, people that have been listening to our podcast from the very start, I don't have an issue with the National. I get a lot. And it's just the fact that they've been doing a lot of stuff during this lockdown, and what else is there to talk about during lockdown? So today I'm going to start with talking about their National Theatre at Home series. I'm going to start by reeling off all the productions that have currently had an at-home premiere on their YouTube channel. So they premiere at 7 o'clock on a Thursday night, and they stay for a whole week. So, I'll take a deep breath, and I will reel off all the productions that there have been.
I'm ready to take notes to be able to come back with you.
I'm ready. So they started with One Man, Two Governors, then it was Jane Eyre, Treasure Island, Twelfth Night, Frankenstein, Anthony and Cleopatra, Barbershop Chronicles, A Streetcar Named Desire, This House, Coriolanus, The Madness of George III, Small Island, which we covered on last week's podcast, A Midsummer Night's Dream, which at the time of recording is this week's, but at the time of release will be last week's, and the remaining ones that they've currently announced, and I think I'm right in saying that these are the last ones, but if that is incorrect then my apologies. And we have Le Blocs, The Deep Blue Sea, and Amadeus. I counted up earlier that I think I've seen probably 7 or 8 of them so far, and there are some very good productions out there, and that's something that I need to kind of stress, that there are some very good productions that they have shown.
They're good shows.
Including, I'm going to start talking about some things that I have enjoyed actually, because some of them deserve a lot of credit. As I said, there are a few ones that I've really, really enjoyed. One Man, Two Governors I had never seen, and that obviously won many awards and transferred to Broadway and had quite a long run there. The original starred James Corden, who we all, I'm sure, know. I then watched Twelfth Night, which was the first time I ever actually experienced the National Theatre Live. I went to the cinema when I was in sixth form. We did that as one of our English texts and went along and already seen that, but really enjoyed it, so watched that one again. I then saw...
12 Nights fab.
Yeah, I love that place so much. Frankenstein I saw, which was the week later, and then I saw actually pretty much all of that kind of middle of, end of May, start of June period of Anthony and Cleopatra. Bit long, but then it's quite a long play, but very good. Barbershop Chronicles by Inuit Ellams, who is an outstanding playwright. and poet, actually, as well. If you don't know his work, go and check his work out. He also did a version of Three Sisters as recently as last November at the National, which is a very good production.
Are you talking about Chekhov again, mate?
No, I don't know what you're talking about. And actually, before you say anything, the production of that show, or that play, should I say, was by Inuit Elms after Chekhov, so it's not actually Chekhov.
I apologise.
No, the drama actually shifted from 19th century, start of the 20th century, Russia to 1960s Nigeria, so it's pretty much a whole new play. The kind of overall plot was kind of the same in terms of the characters and functions, but other than that, whole new play. So for all you out there that think I just forgot about Chekhov, that was a whole new play. And I will continue saying that for the majority of the time that we talk about it. I then saw A Streetcar Named Desire, which I also did in English, and I had a few reservations about that play because a lot of the versions that I kind of seen before that, I have a bit of an issue with the way they kind of portray Blanche's mental illness and basically a mental breakdown, basically suggesting that it starts when she enters the play at the start of the play, and that's obviously that isn't the case, in my opinion, at all. It's already there, but you see a gradual breakdown throughout the play, and in this production at the Young Vic, that was made very clear, so I really like that one, and it was in the round, so incredible. I didn't see This House, didn't see Coriolanus, I didn't see The Madness of George III.
You have seen Coriolanus, but
not that version. This was the Tom Hiddleston version at the Donmar Warehouse.
I got the wrong one then.
Yeah. And then Small Island we saw last week and we discussed, so if you haven't seen that podcast, there'll be a little thing that will come up in the top corner, either there or there at the moment. And I haven't currently seen it at the time of recording A Midsummer Night's Dream, but I'm going to have watched that by the time it has ended. So before we get on to my gripe, what's your overall thoughts about that, Tom, in terms of the lineup? There's a lot of Shakespeare there.
There's a lot of... it goes back to another conversation we had before, and in terms of theatres are going to have to start trawling through the back catalogues and going for the stuff that's most popular. Mm-hmm. So the Shakespeares, the Chekhovs, the plays that are familiar, that people will recognise.
Yep.
Because, again, it draws people in. If you see a title for a new play, you don't know it, you don't know what it's about, you don't get it, you might not enjoy it, you can't be sure it will be of a good quality.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's Shakespeare or Chekhov, you can sort of see it and be like, alright, yeah, it's pretty good. So there's a lot of that in there. I think it's an okay lineup. Clearly all the plays are good ones that have done really well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get what you're saying on that. I get what you're saying. that it's a bit single visioned, you know. Yeah. So go on, Luke. Tell us, what is your opinion on theatre at home?
Now, I'm going to preface this and say that I hope that I don't have to get the beat machine out for this, and I don't think I will. I'll try and contain my words, but I absolutely hate it. And the reason I hate it is because... I mean, as I said, I had a strong opinion on this. The reason I hate it is because there's so many cameras. They literally cut every 3 seconds. There isn't a single camera which I could sit in the top row of the upper circle or something like that and actually see the whole stage. The great thing about the theatre is we, as an audience, can look at exactly what we want to look at. If I want to look at someone that's upstage right, then I can look at someone that's upstage right. At this, no! I'm going to have my eye directed by probably not even the person who directed the piece of theatre, by a film director who specialises in this, saying, you're going to look specifically at this actor's face right now, because they're going to do something that's going to be like, and they're going to have a certain reaction that I want you to see, which I don't trust that you might have seen if you had seen this originally. There's so many cameras as it moves, it pans lovely across the stage, it's all shot very nicely, but that's not anything like you'd expect in the theatre. Put me one camera right in the middle, great, I can see the whole stage, it's all working, and I like that. But don't cut every 3 seconds to basically tell me what I should be watching, because that is not what theatre is, and that is not what theatre should be.
Right, I'm going to pause you right there.
Probably best.
Just purely because A, time, but B, So one thing that is sort of poking into my head when I was listening to you do that, I know I've only been part of amateur dramatic societies and productions. I've never done a big scale, something like the National or like the Old Vic or something like that. I haven't done anything like that. So I can't talk for them. And obviously their budget is extortionately larger than what I've been working with. But one thing I can say is trying to film a theatrical production with theatre lights, changing lights, sets, costume, intimacies, characters and so on. Trying to do that on one camera is a nightmare.
I can imagine.
You have to constantly be changing the settings and exposures and all the little details it's a nightmare. So the reason they've got lots of cameras is A, better views of what the actors are doing, and I know that's not quite what theatre is about, and I get that, but it's getting good angles and things. It's giving you the best possible view of what it is, and when it does do close-ups, it's very rarely when there's something else happening on stage. So one production that I saw was Yerma. Is it Billy Piper, the Yerma?
Yeah, it might have been.
Yeah, and the way they filmed that was good, because it was in the round, or at least it was Traverse or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but there was two people on the side, and it was in a glass box. Yeah. But there was such a minimalist set, and there was not much going on. But the way they filmed it was they just did characters, and whenever they did a close-up, the other character wasn't doing anything anyway. So they do consider these things.
Okay.
For example, when we saw Small Island, they did very rarely go fully into the film and give just like this. They very rarely did that, which is very cinematic and what they do in film. So what they're trying to do is give the best view, the best interpretation of what the production is and trying to show. Because they do big pans and big wide.
Oh yeah, they do, definitely.
But I understand your gripe, but I think I disagree. I think there's a lot of difficulties around it, and they've produced possibly the best compatible component. If they did both, great. If they had two options, if they had like the cinematic one and then the one that you're suggesting, the big wide one, I think that'd be a good idea. But again, that's a lot more money and a lot more effort to go into it.
So do you kind of agree with this cinematic way of presenting theatre that has kind of come into this watching theatre at home, and that's the way they record it because it looks nice, and when you're sat in the cinema, which is what these productions originally were for, they weren't necessarily filmed to be put online, that's just happened because none of us can go to the theatre, we're all still in lockdown and enjoying our lives in our bedrooms basically, but well, enjoying might be a bit strong, but do you kind of think that that's a good idea in terms of, are they trying to appeal to cinema goers to give them a cinematic experience, or are they trying to appeal to audiences who can't necessarily get down to the National or London or can't necessarily afford that, so it's a way to get them into the cinema or their local cinema for 2.5 hours, and so they can actually experience some type of theatre?
Yeah. I think what they've created is a happy medium. So I think people who obviously can't make it to the National or get into central London, maybe they live up like Manchester or in the countryside where they can't really get in. I think they've created something where you can go to a cinema and experience theatre, because I think you are still experiencing theatre. It's completely different and it's a different world, a different creation and so on. I get that, but it's still a production of theatre, and it's cool. Like watching Small Island, I don't feel like the whole time going like, I wish I was. Well, I did wish I was there, to be fair, because it's theatre. But I was watching it going, this is really cool. This is a nice alternative. Same with 12th Night. I thoroughly enjoyed 12th Night. To what I believe in the film's ability. I was laughing throughout it. I was enjoying it. I was engaged. But I think at the same time, they are trying to engage new audiences in a way of advertisement to bring people into, oh, look what the theatre can do. But I think when it comes to this sort of National Theatre Live and the streaming and so on, and the cinemas, it's almost the blockbuster equivalent of theatre. Mm-hmm. So when you compare, like, you've got, when you get to the film industry, you've got stuff like the cinematic, you've got the blockbuster, the Hollywood blockbuster, stuff like that, the big Western film, like the Marvel films and so on, the sort of stuff where you're like, oh yeah, the James Bonds, like these big franchises and so on. And then you've got the smaller indie films, which are sort of less than a tenth of the budget of the big blockbuster films, but they also take in less money and they're made more like smaller scale. And I think if you compare that to theatre, you have the big West End musicals, which are like the big blockbusters.
Yeah.
And then you've got the smaller sort of 10-seater fringe shows, which are like the little indie ones. And if you compare that, obviously the big cinemas are going to want to draw people in, so they use the big budget shows to like film and get people in the cinema, and it's a good advertisement for what cinema is. What theatre is. That slip of the tongue is a fatal one for that conversation. You know what I meant?
Yeah.
And I think it's good. I think it's a really positive thing because people who don't often go to the theatre a lot now have a chance to, because it's cheaper, it's easier to get to, it's more realistic in like a modern age because people are busy, people have stuff going on. A day in London isn't necessarily possible for a lot of people, especially with the travel and food and the actual tickets itself. It's a nightmare, and I think this is a good step forward. And it was lucky that they had everything pre-recorded to send out.
Can I come back on that though?
Yeah, far away.
In the sense that, do you think in the long term, and it's something I've said for many years now, because this idea of filming it and doing it in the cinema, I don't know if I think I even approve of that. And I'd only say I've seen 12 nights before this whole at-home business. And the reason I say this is because if you've got a big production and you're a theatre lover or you're kind of getting into theatre, and you know before, pretty much as soon as those tickets come out for the actual production run, that there's going to be a National Theatre cinema screening of that production, whether that be at the National or one of their partner theatres in and around London or even wider afield. I mean, The Madness of George III was at Nottingham Playhouse. Yeah. If that's the case, are you going to go to the theatre at £60 a ticket, or are you going to go, well, I'll just wait and go to the cinema? And then, does that then draw people away from the theatre and then make the actual audiences more middle class, higher prices? Because if the kind of lower ticket prices are being drawn away by the thought of, well, I can just go to the cinema and watch it, is that not a bad thing for theatre moving forward?
I think it's not. Okay, this is going to be a sort of a collection of all the ideas we discussed in all our episodes. But if we have the theatres that are now going to be going back to the classics, the Shakespeare's, the Chekhov's, the Ibsens, the Stoppards, all that, the classic plays, to be honest, the theatre goers will be the middle and upper class anyway. If we can then use this new technology and the streaming and the live and the recording to bring in other younger audience and people who haven't seen this sort of theatre before, but we ramp up the ticket prices just for those classics. It's quite selfish for me to think this in terms of what I want to do in my theatre career, but have the ticket prices ramped up for the actual in-seat housing. To keep the theatres afloat because the seating numbers are going to have to go down. But also, if they do a show like that one year and they extortionate prices for the seats in the theatre, but then the cinema seats are more reasonable, but they still get some income from it, you could then use that money to put on more inventive, new, creative risks that the industry tends to be. And I believe if it comes down to money, people who go to the theatre already, sort of in the middle and upper classes that would go to the theatre anyway, will want to go back. So
of course they will.
Why not leave them dry to keep the theatres alive and keep the theatres doing what the theatres want to do, not what they have to do to keep commercially going? You know, I think that might be. It's sad because I want to go to the theatre and do things, but if it then makes ticket prices for the next thing, which isn't a 15th reboot of Hamlet in the last 6 months, it gives them more money to do that, then I'm not too fussed about it, to be honest. And the ticket prices go back to normal for that sort of thing.
So just to be clear, before we go for a quick break, your idea, which actually kind of makes a bit of sense, is you take your expensive ticket prices for your basically restated your classics and the kind of new writers, you know, the likes of your Churchills, your Pinters, your Simon Stephens, you know, all the basically the British canon. I'm going to codename them. You charge them a lot of money. You take a certain percentage of that, and you take a certain percentage of the cinema ticket prices, and you create a new budget that the theatres themselves never see, and that's reinvested into fringe venues to keep them afloat and to keep them running.
I mean, that's a more inventive way to keep the community alive. So not just going back into the same theatre, but maybe creating charities to help smaller venues to create more exciting work and up and coming, which will then eventually become part of the Great British Canon.
Yeah.
I will just put this as a conclusion to what my idea is here. I thought of this about 10 seconds after, 10 seconds before I started speaking. Like, there's a concept just went, boom. Not perfect.
Sometimes the best concepts do.
I just thought of it as an interesting concept. That would be a dream world, because then money still goes to the smaller venues and the big venues to get enough money to support themselves.
Especially if Mr. Dowden's idea of getting the theatre back to work is to be put into action, but the less said about that, I think, the better for now.
Right.
Anyway, we'll go for a quick break and we'll see you after this.
Literally thought of that idea like that. It came out of nowhere and I went, why isn't this a thing?
They should be. It makes so much sense. You get it in the contracts that they take, I don't know, 10, 20%. The cinemas themselves take 20% or whatever it costs to pay their staff and make a little bit of profit. Then the rest goes to the production company that have made it and the theatres themselves.
But people will still go to the big theatres. Of
course they will.
And they want a day out. They want a night out. So the seating goes down a bit, but the revenue goes the same level.
Yeah.
You can play around with that and shape something. With the big theatres, like the Harold Pinter Theatre, only really do reshaping of classics. They don't do new writing.
No, of course they don't.
Fresh work, which is not a problem because the stuff they do is amazing. But if they do that with a slightly higher price, and then use that money to fund other things and keep themselves alive while putting a little bit aside for smaller venues. Like if every big West End theatre was partnered with a small London theatre, or even a theatre in Birmingham or Manchester or Coventry, I don't fucking know, but like something like that, and I don't know.
Do you know what the last thing I saw at the Harold Pinter Theatre was?
What?
Chekhov's Uncle Vanya. Great performance, great production, honestly, unbelievable.
The last thing I was. It was probably one of Pinter's shorts.
Last year in that season.
It was the Dumb Waiter on a Sly Take.
We went together to see that, didn't we? The other one we went to see?
No, we went to see Celebration and Party Time.
We saw another two. The one with Danny Dyer and Martin Freeman in. The one that was really looking forward to, and the one before it, which was a proper radio play. It was actually better.
It was A Slight Ache was fucking amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you did actually. Because I've seen 3 lots of the shorts.
Yeah.
So sort of like Mountain Language and all that, one for the road, and then we saw Birthday Party and Party Time and Celebration. And then
And we were dotted basically all the way around the top tier of the upper circle, weren't we? Yeah. Yeah, we did.
No, I forgot about that. Yeah. That was good. That.
It was good.
Right.
Okay, so we are back after that break, and we're going to follow on that discussion that got a little bit heated at times by talking about online theatre and theatre in the new age, I'm not even going to say post-COVID age because I'm not post-COVID, the during COVID age, and we're going to start with a remake actually, because there's been some redirection of the original production that we saw, that we enjoyed when we saw it, of Lungs by Duncan Macmillan at the Old Vic, starring Clare and Matt Smith. So basically what they have done is they have, if you didn't see the original production, we're not going to spoil it for you because you might be one of the lucky 1,000 people that have managed to get tickets at £65 for the at-home or join them online or whatever it is version. They've basically shifted the action from the middle of the auditorium to the actual stage itself, and they've got cameras around the whole of the stage, and then you look out at the empty Old Vic auditorium. And what they've had to do is had to redirect it in the sense of they have to keep 2 metres between the actors and everything like that, which I think is quite interesting as to how you would do some of those bits, because having seen the production, some of it's quite intimate. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's a weird one. I think in an opportunity like this, they could have done a lot more. They could have done some really interesting stuff, restaged it in a new area. Because the main criticism I sort of had for a play like this, which is incredibly environmentally focused, is it isn't a very environmentally focused theatre, stage, setting, anything like that.
At least that version of it wasn't.
The floor was solar panels, but apart from that,
apparently they weren't floor solar panels.
Either way, but if they'd done it and set it outside in a forest or something with some interesting additions and stuff like that, I think that.
Well, the German production that Katie Mitchell directed, they had them all on bicycles, and they were basically just biking the whole length of the production, having a conversation, and all of the energy that they had harvested from biking throughout it's an hour and a half production, ran the lights, which I think is a really clever idea. I mean, and it never kind of dawned on me that to be an actor in that production, you also need to be a professional cyclist.
I liked it. But it's a nice idea. But when you have a show like this that did well when it was up, has some big names in it. If you did it differently, with a different set or different thing like that, you could draw the same people who saw it and enjoyed it back again to go, oh, I wonder what they've done this time.
Yeah.
And it becomes a whole new production with a whole new.
Because although it'll be socially distanced and some of the bits will have to be different because they cannot be the same in this COVID-friendly environment that we live in, it'll probably be 95% the same production that we saw last October.
Yeah. Now, what I find interesting about online theatre in this sort of sense is, it's a necessity now. It's becoming a thing that people will have to learn about.
100%.
This era of theatre will be taught in schools, I reckon, in sort of theatre classes.
That's if we still had to teach drama in 15, 5, 10 years' time.
Well, yeah, if it's ever funded. But it's something that is very important now and will be in the future. And I think a lot of things will become normal from this part. And I think it's something that is worth looking into because I think a lot of it can be really interesting. So stepping away from live streams and things, but I've seen a lot of theatre companies do stage readings on Zoom and things like that, and it's a really good way to sort of spread across the globe wherever you can and explore theatre in a way that is new, and you don't have to be in the same room or the same building or the same country even. And I think that is fantastic. So I think theatre brings a lot of people together, and if you can utilise that well using the websites, using the internet, it's a positive.
And I think moving forward, if you can rehearse from your bedroom anywhere around the world, it cuts down on the amount of rehearsals you have to have, having everybody together in terms of getting them in a location anywhere around the world, securing a venue, because you have to kind of adapt to the times, and you kind of just make sure that what you're doing is still relevant to the world and responding to the world around you, which is basically all that theatre ever has been and ever will be. Somebody writing or directing or acting, but in essence just responding to what's happening around them in the world. And that's all that theatre is in its very, very basic forms. So why can't we do it online?
Yeah. And also it cuts down travel. It stops people flying and driving and taking us in, because it means if rehearsals start later, there's less reason for you to be going back and forth and commuting or whatever. So it's helpful.
Does it?
Yeah, I think it's a positive moving forward.
I think it definitely is. But I think, just to pick up on a previous conversation, as we are today, we are all on Zoom, and everyone on Zoom is probably at least 3 or 4 times a week, potentially now. And we're thinking a little bit about my gripe with the National's way of filming things and the production company itself. Do you think, though, that we do then run the risk of becoming very film-orientated, because we are then acting to a camera, in essence?
I think in a slightly pessimistic viewpoint of theatre, it was always going to happen.
Yeah.
Theatre has become it's an art form that has been around for many years, but the advance of technology now is every time you go to see a show now, there's got projection or some sort of filmed element or something like that. It was always going to head in this direction, and I think COVID just sped it up.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that's a negative thing.
Yeah.
Because there are some productions which, if handled correctly, can utilize that in such a fantastic way. Others will use it as a gimmick, which isn't right. But if you can create theatre that is enhanced from technology, that's the good stuff.
That's a sweet spot.
That's a sweet spot, yeah.
So hopefully that is a conversation that we'll be able to pick up in the coming weeks and months. You might already be thinking at home as you're listening and watching this podcast about why we are so passionate about this era of online theatre and the way in which it can work, and there is more on that to come, hopefully, as I say, in the next few weeks and months. But I think that seems like a good place to round off this week's podcast.
Timing-wise, it certainly does feel like a good place.
Yeah. So all that is left to say, again, thank you for listening and watching this podcast. Drop a like on this podcast, subscribe down below if you haven't already to our channel, and hit the post notification bell to realise when these podcasts go live. They usually go live around about 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, so if that is the time that you are listening or watching to us, thank you for doing so. But as you can say, watch us and listen to us whenever you have. If it's the first time, go back and look at some of our other podcasts that we have done so far. So all that is left to say from me is thank you for listening.
And adios.
Adios. We'll see you next week. Bye.